This week in Pure Reinvention.
I think most people want whatever it is they're going to buy with somebody looking them in the eye. And if they can personalize, customize, individualize it from an experiential standpoint, I think you're going to win.
Episode 133, Jim Knight, founder and owner at Knight Speaker.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to episode 133 and the Pure Reinvention Experience, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. Here with my co-host, Will Carlson. Will, this was a really fun interview to do.
Well, Jim is just an interesting guy, and, he has the hair, the 80s hairstyle, that type of thing, and, definitely a dynamic person. And, what Jody actually scored, he was he just got done with his keynote address, and we were doing some recording, and Jody managed to flag him down at the governor's conference and bring him our way, and we got an interview out of it.
Right. He was a keynote for the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association's Michigan Governor's Conference. I watched him, actually. Very dynamic speaker, had the group mesmerized. We were very fortunate in that Jody, actually, interestingly enough, Jody didn't think that he would necessarily be interested, but she walked up to him, explained what we were doing, and he was excited to be a part of it. And I think we're excited to be able to share a little bit of the message that he brought to the Pure Reinvention crowd, which I was very, very pleased to be able to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. He talks about branding and experiential marketing, which is a real hot topic these days. So I think there'll be a good bit we can discuss in the afterwards.
Yeah, let's listen to that now.
This week's episode is sponsored by HRM Services, providing solutions that work. HRMS provides customized human resource consulting services to fit the unique needs of their clients. Every client has a story, and they make it their business to learn yours. Contact HRM Services today at 517-974-8033 or visit their website at hrmservices.biz.
We're here with Jim Knight, who is a keynote speaker for the Michigan Lodging and Tourism Association's Pure Michigan Governor's Conference. Jim, you came in from Florida. Thanks for being here.
I did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Have you had a chance to experience Detroit at all?
I have. I get a chance to probably come up here once or twice a year for different engagements. And back in the day when I was working for my previous employer, Hard Rock International, we have a cafe up here.
Yeah, you do.
Had a chance to open that up. So every once in a while we do some training up here. But it's fun to come back and see the awesomeness that's going on in the city right now with the reinvention. I like it.
What do you think about the vibe?
I like it a lot. I mean, obviously 4 or 5 years ago, people were talking and thinking differently. And, you just go through this crazy election. And outside of all of that, people have taken some ownership in their city, and just really, whether it's just dollars or just a mindset, you can definitely see it and feel it. And so being at the conference and just pure Michigan, I mean, now I'm starting to think more and more about just pure Detroit.
Sure.
Like I'm starting to see the real resurgence, and I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, that's why we're happy to have you at Pure Reinvention.
Right? Of course, right.
So we just had a chance to watch you mesmerize 1,100 attendees. I swear they didn't blink, and I'm not sure they were breathing because you had such a message. What was this message that really captured people's attention this morning?
I really enjoy spending time with groups, and really the larger the groups, the better, because my driving force is about impact and influence. So to be first thing on in the morning with 1,100 people and to talk about how you can think about things differently. I know people use the word differentiation. I probably talk more about culture and service because of my background in hospitality and work with Hard Rock International. For sure, that brand was all about unpredictability and irreverence and passion, and all the while being authentic. So I've taken some of those tenets and weaved it into my own personal brand. And if I get a chance to talk about anything, whether it's a technical, tactical, managerial topic, or whether it's just a fun, broad, 30,000-foot hey, how do you amp up or revolutionize your service philosophy or your culture in general? That's the space that I get a chance to play in. So I do use a lot of music orientation, a lot of band and brand analogies, but the message for me was I want you to think differently about your organization and whether it's a product or a service that you're delivering, because as me personally, I'm an experiential starved consumer. I am on the hunt looking for people to do something different with me. And when you do that, what you get with me is loyalty. I'm going to keep coming back to the well. I'm going to spend more money. I'm going to talk about you positively. Those are the three sort of things that I'm always looking for.
Let's talk about some really important keywords that you've struck on. And
Sure.
that is, one is I'm all about helping people do things differently.
Yeah.
Why today is it so important that we do things differently?
Well, I'm going to come out of the gate and say, and this is a sad state of affairs, but I think we live in a world of mediocrity. And I'll tell you why.
It's gotten kind of plain, hasn't it?
It is. It's very middle of the road. It didn't used to be like that. You know, all of us here are old enough to remember what it was like 25, 30 years ago when service was fantastic. And then something happened. All the restaurants and the hoteliers and tourist attractions, everybody got in some big old monster conference and said, hey, let's be mediocre for a while and see what that's like. Because I think it came true. And my point is, I think we can get back to that type of a philosophy and that type of a behavior. Or at the very least, you know you can leapfrog everybody else. If you've got competitors, it's so easy to crush everybody else because so many people aren't even trying. So I get bummed out when I'm around people that are just apathetic. I get bummed out when I experience mediocrity, almost more than bad service, because at least that's, you know, you can solve that, or a manager maybe can solve that. You probably never see mediocrity. It just goes unchecked. It creates something that I call acceptable mediocrity, because I'm a part of it. I have now lowered my standards. I used to be a letter writer. I used to complain when things were just meh, middle of the road, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, la, 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 la. I close my eyes, fingers in my ears.
We just accept it.
I get in and get out and I accept it. And I go, unless it's really bad, I don't like any drama.
And you know what's interesting is those businesses, when they first started, they had that passion.
Oh, yeah.
And they were different. And that's why people were attracted to them. And
That's
then
right.
somewhere in that life cycle, we kind of lost that edge. We
Exactly.
lost that why we're here kind of
That's right.
understanding.
That's right, Mike. And what I'm trying to do is get the love back. I want people to think again, close their eyes, remember what that was like, whether it was when they first started, or if they're in a startup right now, how do you hold on to that? How do you bottle it up? How do you take a swig of it every once in a while? Because these are the good old days you're going to be talking about 2 decades from now.
And here's where then I want to ask you about the next word you used, which I think fits into this entire thought process, and that is I want you to have this experiential experience.
That's right.
Talk about how important today we allow people in to experience.
So, great question. And it is the totality of the experience. I shared a couple things in my session today. And one of them was this sort of force multiplier that everybody comes to us because they have a need, right? And in our world, they've got disposable income. They're coming to stay or sleep or drink or shop or play or whatever it is. They don't need us. They want us. And so they're already in a fairly good mood, but it's disposable income. So you can't take that for granted. But people will hang their hat on the product. They think the building is awesome, or my drinks are great, or my food is the best quality. Yeah, that gets you in the door. That allows you to exist. That doesn't put you in the end zone. It certainly doesn't create such an unbelievable, indelible memory in your head. The memories, the guest-obsessed memories that you ultimately create are the ones that get people to continuously come back and spend more money. So it's always about the experience. It's never about the product. And I use this sort of mentality again because I'm an experiential starved consumer. I can't be the only one. I think other people want differentiation. I think they want to be treated a little bit of perhaps surprise and delight, perhaps a little shock and awe and over the top every once in a while. But I think most people want whatever it is they're going to buy with somebody looking them in the eye. And if they can personalize, customize, individualize it from an experiential standpoint, I think you're going to win. Here's something else. I do a lot of work in looking at brand mission statements and purpose statements. You go and pull up any of them. Just go to Google and companies with awesome mission statements, just put that in and you'll get a ton of them. So you pick ones like Lego and Nike and Apple and Starbucks and all the usual brands that we always all use, almost too much. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason. Go look at their mission statements. Not a single one of them talk about their product. None of them talk about profit. They always talk about the end user and the totality really of the experience you're trying to create. So that's a real learning for me, that they're putting it not just because it's on a wallet card or a poster, like they put that in their values and make decisions off of it.
I was struck when I listened to you talk about the Rolling Stones this morning and was absolutely floored by the fact that you pointed out that they have not had a hit record
or album
for like more than 2 decades.
Yeah, since 1989.
Yet those guys pack them in everywhere they go.
Top grossing act every time.
And it's got to be, since it's not, you're teaching me, it's not about the product
That's
or
right.
the hit song. It's about if you can draw people in with the experience.
Yep.
That's what they
That's
come
where you're going
to
to win.
participate.
Absolutely. And it is an analogy. I try and do a lot of band and brand analogies or music orientation just because it's a fun way to edutain people, I think. Mm-hmm. But the Rolling Stones are just one of those. You know, they're out there hoofing it at, 72 years old, and yet they crush everybody when they go on the road.
So it's not about age.
It's not about age.
It's not about having the most recent hit album.
Or maybe even the best songs. There are people, and this happens all the time, people that might not be fans of the Rolling Stones that have been drugged to the concert, right, will absolutely say that is the best experience they've ever had.
They end up standing on the chair. And
They will. And some of them, are, they get wrapped up in the rock ballad and get the big lighter out, and they'll remember because they know one or two songs.
I think we're all trying to find that next edge.
Yeah.
And maybe what we have to go back is to the reason we're even here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then play that card, because that's really the card.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, not everybody can go out there and try and be edgy. And there's some brands they would not be able to survive to do that. And I'm not encouraging that. I don't even tell people to do the things that I'm saying. But I'm saying there's got to be some wherewithal. You've got to be able to connect the dots. I'm hoping that their synapses firing going, I can't do that this guy just said, but I could do something like it. So what does innovation mean to you? What does differentiation mean in your world? Whatever it is, if your competitors are doing the same thing, well, then you're no different. People are going to make their decisions off of price, and people can't compete with that. So you have to think differently about the experience and how you made me feel. If there's an emotional connection and I can't fathom not having you as a brand in my life, then you've done your job.
Now, you talk about the 3 C's.
Yes.
What are the 3 C's?
So the 3 C's is just a way of thinking about the type of people that you want to hire and hold on to. And I always start with the first one, which is about having competence, strong competence. Problem is, and that's not the same thing as experience, because the majority of people in our industries come to us with zero experience. Somebody's got to give them a chance. But competence, you can see pretty early on during the training process whether they got it or they didn't. They're getting it or they don't. Maybe they don't have all the arrows, in their quiver, but they're working on it and they're not waiting for someone to come and teach them. So competence is important, and I want people to be able to do the job. It's the least important C, by the way, to me. The other two are way more important. The second one is all about character. You want somebody who cares about you, cares about showing up for the brand, isn't trying to disrupt the harmony of everything you're trying to do. They're not trying to steal from you. Their value orientation matches up to the company's values. And I used to stop there. It was about competence and character. But now I've seen over the last 20 years, and not just because I write about and talk about it, the focus now for me is culture. There is something to be said about cultural fit. And I was sharing an analogy up on stage, so I appreciate you asking me about it. I said, listen, if I was to go out on the road and talk to a brand, now this worked very well in Hard Rock, and I asked the general manager, if you could take one manager and one team member, one staff member with you, and we're going to go start a new business, who do you take? They never, ever, ever took the most competent person.
Isn't that amazing?
They always took the character and culture fit, and they thought, I'll get there with the competence. Yep. The other way around, that person's just a statistic waiting to happen. So now it worked for a culturally relevant brand like that, but quite honestly, I think that would work for just about any company in any industry. So competence, character, culture fit. Those are the 3.
So we're going to now shift gears to the 5 steps of pure reinvention.
Yes.
Jim, and we've had a chance to kind of get those, just like you have the 3 C's, we have the 5 steps to reinvention. With the 5 steps, disrupt, own, simplify, connect, and move, which of those 5 steps do you mostly closely associate yourself with?
Well, I actually, I would say, I'm not going to say one's more powerful than the other, but I've got 2 that are right on my brain. I would say disruption works for me. So disrupt is probably number 1, which is the whole reason. The hair, the jeans, the language, the attitude, it's all branded in such a way to get people to retain the information. I want them to think about the stuff that I talk about, not just, I sat through something, or if I'm writing something or whatever the format might be. But I'm just as equally connected to connect. I think that part of what I'm trying to do is get people to connect now with their end user, client, customer, guest, whoever that person is. I think we've lost a little bit of that. I'm not going to blame today's generation. I have a love affair with the millennials. I think about the digital natives right behind them. I think it's all behavior driven. It's learned behavior. And I think if we as society, and I'm including parents, school, businesses, friends,
we're all in
playground, religion, we're all in there. If we got better at teaching people to connect a little bit more with whoever they ultimately will be doing business with, I think we'll be in a much better place. And that is really, really hard to teach. You'd like to be able to hire that innate business. You hope they show up with the juice running through their veins versus me trying not to teach.
Right, but I think you're right. We don't teach that, and we don't have a lot of examples to emulate that.
That's right.
So we're kind of in this spot where if you have the ability to, and I want to go back to what you've been talking about this entire time, which is creating that experience. If you can create that experience by getting away from PowerPoints and getting away from things and actually immersing people into what it is to build that passion and to build that understanding so they can feel it right to their core, not just just have some sort of superficial relationship with whatever that is. That's how I think you're teaching us to connect, that experiential, deep connection right down to my soul of how I feel about what you're talking about or what you're selling or what we're experiencing is for us such I almost want to say a desperate way to get people to see what you have available, because we have lost the ability to really touch people in that meaningful way. Everything's this quick touch, right? Twitter accounts and Snapchat, it's all about fast.
Yeah.
Kind of skip along the top. What you're teaching us is don't be afraid to really connect deep and meaningfully.
I hope so. I mean, I'm glad you said that, although PowerPoint is my weapon of choice, and I do talk fast, and I do play in social media quite a bit. So I'm trying to use the exact same tools. I want to train and communicate in the language that people dream. Yeah. So when I think about if I can use the word, the kids of today, they're utilizing this technology. They do talk fast. They need visual help to connect the dots on some of the information. So I play in that sandbox. Hopefully these are not tired toys. I hope I'm using it so that I can bring whatever the concepts to life. But I appreciate you saying that. I want to be able to do that in such a way that people walk out of there going, that was a great use of my time.
That meant something to me.
Yeah.
Jim Knight, if people want to know more about you or get a hold of you directly, how do they do that?
Yeah, thank you so much. A couple ways. I have my own brand out there called Knight Speaker, so you could go to knightspeaker.com. The name of my book is Culture That Rocks, and so you could also go to culturethatrocks.com. And I have a business report that I put out monthly called Rock and Grow, and it's got some hyphens in there, rock-n-grow.com. And that's got a video and some written blog and some freebie stuff in there. So pretty much anyway, and you can go on YouTube and there's all kinds of video and craziness out there. But hey, thank you so much, though. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the shout out.
Thank you for taking the time to stop and talk to us at Pure Reinvention. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys.
Well, Will, after having had a chance to hear that interview again, I'm actually even more aware of how important it is that we help organizations and individuals move away from mediocrity with the Pure Reinvention process. Jim was absolutely dead on when he said we have all fallen into mediocrity, and we have to individually and collectively think differently and do things differently to get different results.
Absolutely. And, I think he was joking when he said it about everybody met and decided to consciously make that decision. But I do think, you reach this apex, where you're passionate and you develop a concept or a product, and then you kind of focus within to cost save, cut corners or whatever to be, more, you increase the bottom line. And it's kind of like, in a football game when you run up the score and then you start playing defense, prevent defense, and then the other team starts catching up to you and surpasses you at a certain point.
As Jim would have said, he said, we need to get the love back. We need to be able to express that passion that we probably once had. And, over time, for 100 different reasons, we kind of drift into mediocrity. Whether it's financial pressure or we're just not excited about our work. And that's where the think differently, behave differently, get back to passion. Here's the interesting thing he said, and this is what really struck me, because this isn't really, as we've really talked about this, Will, this is really not about us. Mm-hmm. This is about what message, that simple message that gets sent out. The simple message that gets sent out is no one wants mediocrity who does business with us. And if we're selling mediocrity, no one wants to buy that.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think people they don't consciously do that. When I made my career change and you sat down with me to discuss how we were putting together the plan, you helped me and directed me in a direction to focus on the consumer and the customer. In a tech field, it's really easy to get married to a technology. And okay, I'm going to be a WordPress developer, or I'm going to be a Learn That. And you get so involved in minutia that you're not solving the problem of the customer. Yes. And the technology changes all the time. I got to focus on the customer's needs, and maybe the technology might change and I have to go to somewhere else. And that's a vital aspect and element. We have to pay attention to that because things change all the time. And if we're just refining the widget rather than solving the need, we have lost connection with our customer.
And what the marketplace needs and what the customer needs is for us to have that passion and for us to have that sincere interest in them, right? In what they need. Yeah. The other really, really important message that Jim talked about was experiential. People who are buying your product or service, they have to feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Robert Rose wrote this book, the experiential marketing, out last year, and actually he's claiming it's a whole new, brand new era in experiential marketing. And there's just a tremendous focus on the customer experience. I think Steve Jobs in Apple, he drove his engineers nuts because they wanted to focus on the widget, and he was focused on the consumer experience. And that's what really set them apart. You've always got to keep your eyes on that prize and focus and know your customer well enough and focus on the experience, because otherwise you're just going to become a commodity and you're going to be put in a price game, and that's just the quickest way to the bottom.
Okay, so let's talk about a really relevant, right now, today kind of story. Front page of the Wall Street Journal. So this will date a little bit of when this is coming out. TJ Maxx is defying the retail slump. So we don't need to go into the whole reason why, right? Brick and mortar retail is struggling. But interestingly enough, owner of TJ Maxx and Marshalls has seen sales at stores open at least a year rise for 33 straight quarters, defying, right, the general logic that's going on in retail. How are they doing it? Could be 1,000 different reasons, but here's the one reason it's still down to. This is an example of Simplify. Why are people going there? Is it for the merchandise? Maybe. They're going for the experience. The experience, as defined in this article, the result that people are getting is a rarity in retail, a constant treasure hunt. People are going to that store to see what fresh merchandise showed up today that was unexpected. What's the new treasure that I can find there?
Absolutely. And that's, and that's probably the only ones left standing, I think, in the brick and mortar retail are going to be folks that do that. If you notice Apple again, I always use Apple, but Apple's now focusing more on classes and building a community. If you remember going back to the podcast, April Anderson's podcast, she's built a community around great cakes and bakes. It's not the product.
It's not about the bakery. It's about the community that it serves. That to me is a phenomenal message that goes to what Jim was talking about. Why are you here? What's the simple differentiator? And I think whether it's that article, whether it's the April Anderson story, or 100 successful, right? 100 successful stories, there's a key, simple differentiator. And we need to ask ourselves that question when we're doing this. What is our key, simple differentiator?
Absolutely. Now, as an association or a small business, you need to be focusing on what your customer needs and what would drive them to it. Is your trade show getting declining attendance? Well, then we have to take a hard look at freshening and livening things up. I know at the governor's conference, actually, we helped them liven it up by having a podcast booth at their trade show. There's some cool things that you can do that attract attention that might be little. It might not be a huge investment, but I think you always have to add that added touch in future events to keep people coming.
The added touch. Remember, if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.